I want to start off by letting you know that you inspire me. I'm touched and humbled by you. So many of you engage me with questions and comments, and it's nothing short of inspiring and humbling. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, first and foremost. We all need some bearings. We all need some way of organizing the information that we receive from clients, to make sense of it, to get some sort of explanatory and some predictive power that can help us understand how to work with someone. Essentially, it comes down to we need to know a client's ego-adaptive capacity. Like, that's at the top of the list. And as most of you know, I'm sure, we do that by attending to these different parameters, like the channels of unconscious anxiety discharge, the kinds of defenses that are utilized, the client's self-functions, their ability to self-reflect and report on internal experiences, their ability to do their part of the dialogue and have a give and take back and forth relationship, their response to interpretations, their motivational system, how motivated are they to face and resolve their difficulties, as opposed to perhaps motivated to be comforted, right? Those are two different sources of motivation. The patient's ability to differentiate the corners of the triangle of conflict. Are they clear on the difference between feeling, anxiety, and defense? Whether or not defenses are ego-syntonic or ego-dystonic. Okay, all of this forms a picture. It gives us a sense of the client's ego-adaptive capacity, and we get a somewhat accurate psycho-diagnostic picture when we apply some pressure. And then finally, we take all the data and we plug it into a diagnostic category. High resistance with repression, fragile or moderately fragile or severely fragile or whatever. And that can be useful. It can be a useful guide to have those diagnostic categories. But I'd like to urge a word of caution that the data itself is really important, and we need to attend to all of those parameters. But then when you conclude, when you plug the data into the diagnostic category, that category then tends to be preloaded with assumptions about how to best intervene with someone who fits that diagnostic category. And sometimes that works out. Like a lot of times, for example, when we see the defense of instant repression, the client goes flat, becomes weepy, becomes self-critical. A lot of times it is very helpful to continuously invite feelings, especially angry feelings, towards us. Like, that's something that is often the case that actually pans out, but not always. It's so important to understand that these assumptions that we come to when we plug the information into these diagnostic categories, that they sometimes pan out, but not always. Sometimes there's confounding variables, like unique parts of the interaction with the client or the client's history that take precedence, that need to take priority. And they make it so that we can't just chug along with these assumptions that are preloaded with these modules. So it might be a matter of just holding them flexibly and not holding on to them too rigidly. So for some people, high resistance tends to mean to what extent the client is collaborating with you and offering significant and meaningful information, and how tenaciously they hold on to their defenses even after those defenses have been identified and the function of the cost of the defenses have been clarified. Okay, so then that makes a patient either high, medium, or low resistance. For other people, they tend to see this term as pointing to the kinds of defenses, how the patient is avoiding their innermost thoughts and feelings by isolation of affect, typically. So detaching and being able to talk and think about their feelings without actually feeling them. And so the sturdy wall or barrier of isolation of affect. And then with that module, it's predicted that the unlocking will happen at a very high rise of complex feelings. I remember supervising someone, and they were showing a patient, and they were also telling me about the supervision they had received from someone else. And both the supervisee and myself, we were seeing a patient who was collaborating. The patient was open with my supervisee, but the supervisee had received other supervision and been told that this was a highly resistant patient. I guess because the patient was using intellectual defenses, and they were told to pressure for feeling in a very sort of continuous manner, very stacked manner where you stack the pressures repeatedly. And I saw no indication of such, none at all. Like the patient was collaborating, the supervisee was getting good information, learning things about the patient. The take-home point here is to be really cautious and careful about the underlying assumptions that come preloaded with these learning modules. Here's what you're supposed to do with high resistance, and here's what high resistance means. Moderate resistance, here's what you do. Here's what you do with repression. Like, we need some of that. We need useful guides. But a lot of people are becoming dogmatic about it to the point where they're not actually connecting with their clients. And it's at the expense of what's actually happening, the actual relationship with the client. That will be all for now. Thank you for watching, and know that I am inspired and humbled by your level of engagement.